Freedom will be proclaimed all over the earth as we enter this Shabbat, as we welcome Shabbat together. What a joy is to gather in community to celebrate Shabbat. I invite you to prepare your Shabbos candles. I invite you to prepare your Kiddush cup as we start transitioning from an afternoon of Friday into Erev Shabbat, into the Shabbos evening. I invite you to turn your Siddurim to page 124, Adlakat Neirot.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tziyanu Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Bruchim Habayim. Welcome to TVT. We welcome those that are joining us in Zoom, as we also acknowledge those joining us in YouTube and Facebook. We'll turn our series to page 130 for Lechu Nerana Ladonai. Let's welcome Shabbat with joy. Lechu Nerana
Ladonai, Naharia letzorishenu, nekat matana v'toda, v'yizmiron narialo.
Lechu Nerana Ladonai, Naharia letzorishenu, nekat matana v'toda, v'yizmiron narialo. Page 131. Shiru Ladonai Shir Chadash, Shiru Ladonai kol haaretz,
Shiru Ladonai Baruch Shemo, Asru miyom leyom Yeshuato.
Shiru Ladonai Shir Chadash, Shiru Ladonai kol haaretz, Shiru Ladonai Baruch Shemo, Asru miyom leyom Yeshuato. ישמחו הים ותגל הארץ, ירם הים ומלואו, יעלו שדי בכל אשר בו, אז ירננו כל הצייר. Page 132. אדוני מלך תגל הארץ, ישמחו עם רבים, ענם בערפל סביבו, צדק ומשפט מכון כיסו. Or saru ala tzadik uleshrei lev simcha. A light is shown to the righteous. A light is shown to the seekers of justice, of good. We turn our Siurim to page 134. And the word Sambru, sing, is also means to cut off. And while cutting things is one of the things that you are not supposed to do in Shabbat, I think of cutting off in the context of disconnecting from things, which is something that is a good thing to do in Shabbat. I invite you to think of the things that you need to let go, you need to leave behind as we try to enter this Shabbat, as we try to connect with the world of time, not only by acknowledging time, but rather by becoming time, by being able to explore our connection with ourselves and with each other in the realm of time, connection not only with our nefashot, with the first layer of our souls, but with our neshamot, with the most deeper layer of our souls, not only with our existence, but also with our essence. As we turn our Siurim to page 134.
Samru l'Adonai bechinor, bechinor v'kol zimra, b'chatzotzrot v'kol shofar. Yiram hayam
ישפוט הארץ, ישפוט תבל וצדק, בימים במישרים. ים ימום נורום, תבל ויושבי בה, מנהרות עמך וכף, אף יחד העיר ירדנו, אף יחד העיר ירדנו. Page 136, מזמור לדוד, Psalm 29.
מזמור לדוד, אבו לאדוני בני אלים, אבו לאדוני כבוד מעוז, אבו לאדוני כבוד שמו, השתחוו לאדוני בהדרת קודש, כל אדוני הרמאים אל כבוד ירים, אדוני אדוני עמיים רבים, כל אדוני בכוח, כל אדוני באדל, כל אדוני שובר ארצים, וישבר אדוני את ארצי הלבנון, וירקידם כמו עגל לבנון בציון, כמו בן רעמים. כל אדוני חוצב להבות אש, כל אדוני יכיל מדבר, יכיל אדוני מדבר קדש, כל אדוני יכול לעלות, ויחסות להרות, ובחלום כולו בכבוד, ומחלום כולו אומר כבוד. אדוני למבול ישב, וישב אדוני מלך לעולם, אדוני עוז לעמיו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. Beloved, come to meet the bride. Beloved, come to welcome Shabbat. We turn our Sidurim to page 138 for Lecha Dodi. Lecha Dodi לקראת קלעי, יאללה לה 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 לה, בני שבת נקבלה. Lecha Dodi לקראת קלעי, בני שבת נקבלה.
שמור וסחור בדיבור אחד, ישמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשמו לתפארת, להליט אלי. Lecha Dodi
שבת וקבלה.
לקראת שבת,
לכו ונלכה מקור
הברכה,
מראש מקדם
מהסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבת חידה.
די 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 לך אדוני לקראת כלה שבת וקבלה לך אדוני לקראת כלה שבת וקבלה התעוררי התעוררי כי באורך קומי אורי 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 שיר דברי כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה די די לך אדוני לקראת כלה שבת וקבלה לך אדוני לקראת כלה שבת וקבלה לא תבושי ולא תקהלי מה תשכחי ומה דמי בך יחסו אני העין ונבנתה התפללתי לי לך אדוני לקראת כלה שבת וקבלה לך אדוני לקראת כלה שבת וקבלה. We invite you to rise and to turn toward the entrance of the room we're sitting in as we try to welcome Pnei Shabbat, the Shabbos bride. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצהלה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה בואי חלה די לך אדוני לקראת כלה שבת וקבלה לך אדוני לקראת כלה שבת וקבלה. Shabbat Shalom everyone. We have welcome Shabbos. We invite you to acknowledge each other's presence, to welcome each other. You can wave in each other's direction if you are in Zoom. And if you are in Facebook or YouTube, we invite you to wave as well, even though we can't see your hands moving. But we love to see your faces. We love to see your comments. We love to welcome Shabbat together. We love welcoming Shabbat together. We're on page 140. One more psalm for Shabbat. מזמור שיר ליום השבת.
מזמור, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. השבת. מזמור שיר ליום 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 השבת.
יתגדל ויתקדש מרבה, ועל מה דברך חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל. בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעל מעל מיה. יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי קודשם בריחו לעילה מן כל בחטא ושירתם.
תושבחת ונחמתה תמיד בעלמא ואמרו
page 146. As we get closer to the Shema, we take a moment to acknowledge our minyan. In this Torah portion, Parashat Vayera, the last number that Abraham tries in defense of the people of Sodom and Gomorrah is 10. It's a minyan. And I believe that that's the last number he tries because he's appealing to the minyan. He's appealing to the redemptive power, the healing power, the building power of community. As we get closer to the Shema, we acknowledge that power, that presence, that beauty within ourselves. We acknowledge that we are part of a minyan, and that in the diversity of our minyan, in the diversity of our community, is that we find the unity of God.
את אדוני ידעי די 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 המבורך ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד איי איי די די
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בדברו מרהיב ערבים, בחוכמה פותח שערים ובתבונה משנה עתים, ומחליף את הזמנים ומסדר את הכוכבים ובשלותיהם מרקה כרצונו וליום בלילה, כולל אור מפני חושך וחושך מפני אור. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzebaot is your name, ever-living God, May you reign continually over us into eternity. Baruch Ata Adonai, המעריף ערבים. בת עולם בית ישראל, עמך אהבת תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת. Everlasting love you offer your people Israel by teaching us Torah, mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, let us find our way to you. Let us find our paths in our lives. I invite you to close your eyes for a moment. And as we think of this love, this universal love, I invite you to think about a source, an idea, an image of everlasting, unconditional love in your life. Let that idea surround you with its light, exactly as we cover ourselves, we surround ourselves with a talit. We let the light of this unconditional love surround us and carry us. I invite you to be mindful of your breath, even if only for a moment. To mindfully breathe in and out. As in every neshima, in every breath, we get a bit closer to our neshama, to our soul. Dear God, never remove your love from us. בבטך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. I invite you once again to take a deep breath and become one. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Please join me on page 154 for the chanting of V'ahavta. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadavarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom levavecha ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לעוד על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
אלוהיכם אמת, אמת באמונה כל סוד וקיים עלינו, כי הוא אדוני אלוהינו, ואין זולתו, ואנחנו ישראל עמו. And your children witness your presence. They praise your name in gratitude, and they accepted your sovereignty. Moshe, Miriam, and all Israel sang to you together, lifting their voices with joy. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh. Who is like you, O God? Your children witness your miracles, your niflaot, as they cry out, as they were able to articulate their struggles. They felt the power, the presence, the beauty of your redemption. As it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own, from an obstacle that seemed to be impossible. Praise are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Goel Israel. Yada-dai-dai, yada-dai-dai-dai, yada-dai-dai, yada-dai-dai-dai, yada-dai-dai-dai, yada-dai-dai. Osi vesimrat yah vayehili lishuai. Osi yada-lai-dai, yada-lai-dai-dai, yada-lai-dai. Yada-lai-dai, yada-lai-dai-dai, yada-lai-dai, yada-lai-dai, yada-lai-dai-dai, yada-lai-dai. Vesimrat yah vayehili lishuai. Osi vesimrat yah vayehili lishuai. Page 160. The blessing, the prayer for our inner peace. Ashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom. Ashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom,
V'hamidenu shomrenu l'chaim. Ashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom, v'hamidenu shomrenu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu sugat shlomecha, v'taknenu b'tzar tova milefanecha. Ashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom, v'hamidenu shomrenu l'chaim. Ashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom, v'hamidenu shomrenu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu sugat shlomecha, v'chakinu b'shalom me'ata v'Adonai.
Baruch atah Adonai, הפורש סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל, ועל ירושלים. Blessed are you, Adonai, the shelter of peace spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over your holy city, Jerusalem. I invite you to turn your Sidurim to page 162 for Tfilat Amidah. You can follow along the words of our tradition and also try to find the prayer of your heart, your Tfilah Shebalef, the words you shall say.
It's low.
You want higher? Gabby has a problem of high
Adonai,
right
I found it.
now. Here it is, in the right height, right leg.
Shabbat Tiftach.
Try to find the right height for our prayers.
Fiagi.
Aspire high.
Tehilatecha. Adonai. Shabbat Tiftach.
Let's have grant abundant peace to your people Israel forever. For you are the sovereign God of all peace. ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל באהבה ובשלום. We're experiencing some noise here. שלום במרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל באמרו
Amen.
Amen. We'll give Zach and Fernando to help us a moment. Can you hear us well? You cannot hear us at all right now. Yes, you can. Okay.
Moment.
Here we are back.
I'm back.
Are our guitars and piano connected, Zach? Okay, so we are back. We have a moment of disconnection. And, bringing it back to the idea of it was too high or it was too low. Actually, Tfilat Amidah is the moment in which we try to fine-tune our prayer. We try to fine-tune the things that we are asking for. And And certainly, once we finish Tfilat Amidah, we take a moment to tune our hearts with those that are in need of healing in their bodies, in their souls, with those that are dealing with addictions. We're on page 371 for Misheberach. Shlema b'chlama meira, a complete and a fast recovery. And let us say,
Amen.
Good Shabbos, everyone. I just want to double check. Can you hear me well? Okay, that's good to know. We had a little challenge. We are lucky we have very talented people that were able to overcome that challenge very quickly. But I want to make sure that you are not going to be hearing only noise for the next 5 minutes. Let's say 5 minutes. So there is a popular song that was in Israel was popularized by David Brosa. But actually, I think it comes from Portuguese. In Hebrew, it's called Ki at einena, and in Spanish, it's called Por tu ausencia, because of your absence. Now, with that song in mind, if you read Parashat Vayera, you can't escape the question of where is he? Where is Abraham, right? There is no question that the main character, the hero of this Torah portion, by all means, is Abraham. Now, his name, in the very long first portion of this parsha, is not mentioned. It's not there. He is, but his name, Abraham, is not there. Now, the rabbinical tradition tried to deal with that question. Where is his name? Why is his name not being mentioned? Maimonides says, well, the reason is very simple. He's performing a beautiful mitzvah. He's performing the mitzvah of Achnasat Orchim. He's running toward the strangers. And therefore, the most beautiful way to perform this kind of mitzvot is by doing that in privacy without emphasizing your name, and therefore Abraham's name is not emphasized in the beginning of the Torah portion because he's performing a mitzvah that is so high, so elevated, that it requires humility. Now that's one explanation, and Rambam, of course, connects that idea with the fact that he says that the highest level of tzedakah is that tzedakah, the righteous giving, is the tzedakah in which the receiver doesn't know the identity of the giver. And in that context, he's thinking of Abraham. Now, a different explanation comes from the Kabbalah. The Mekubalim say, our Jewish mysticians, they say that Abraham is having an out-of-body experience in that moment. And therefore, he is there, but it's like he wasn't there. He's observing himself. Now, let me give you some context. He is recovering from his circumcision, his healing, and it might be a moment in his life in which he's reflecting about the decisions he has made and the ways of his life. And so the Mekubalim, the mystic rabbis, say he's having an out-of-body experience. He's looking at himself, speaking with God, and then running toward the strangers, and then welcoming those strangers into his tent, into his house. Now, this idea reminded me of the idea that Professor Ron Heifetz, brings in the context of adaptive leadership. There's an idea that says that we are all the time in the dancing floor. And we are engaged in this dance, in our social dynamics, in our personal interactions, in our work dynamics. And we are trying to follow along the music and the different rhythms that we are perceiving and the actions of those that are dancing around us. And what he says is that we can lose track of ourselves. And therefore, a very good practice in this idea of adaptive leadership is to walk out from the dancing floor, to go into the balcony, and to take a few moments to observe the dancing floor, to observe what's happening there, to step away for a moment in order to observe. And once observing the dynamics, the interactions, the dancers, and maybe observing our own actions, come back with a bit more perspective. Maybe we could come back a bit wiser. And I think that to some extent, that's what Abraham was doing. Now, yesterday I had a conversation with Rabbi Daniel Levine and with Kevod Wither for a project that we are doing in collaboration with the Jewish Federation. And Kevod, Rabbi Wither, brought a very interesting take on the binding of Isaac. Now, the binding of Isaac happens toward the end of this Torah portion. And Kevod says that, in his opinion, that was a moment of growth for Abraham. Now, most of the time, I interpret the binding of Isaac as a moment in which Abraham lost his ability to defy God. And Kevod challenged that idea, and he referred to a midrash that I later on explored, and I want to share a little bit of my exploration on that midrash and that alternative path with you. So the midrash says that actually there was a misunderstanding. When God tells him, do an olah, the word olah could refer to a sacrifice, but also could refer to go up in the mountain, right? So it could have been a misunderstanding. Now, let's be honest. Most of the time, the word olah in the context of Torah is used for sacrifices. With that said, there's a very interesting path for the Midrash, because the Midrash says that when Abraham is about to perform this sacrifice, he finally hears God's voice with clarity. Now, let me pause this for a moment. We also know from the Midrash that Abraham's father, Terach, tried to burn Abraham as well. And to some extent, you could say that Abraham was about to repeat the story. That Abraham was about to do exactly what his dad did, without being able to challenge old patterns, the old patterns that were a part of his education, without asking himself. Now, we know how the story goes in the Torah. God's angel says, Al tishlach et yadcha el anar. Don't put your hand over this young man, or don't you dare to touch this child. I want to think for a moment about what happened there. What really prevents from Abraham to finish that sin that could have been the most terrible mistake he made? And I think that at that moment, Abraham steps back. He goes into a balcony once again, and he looks at himself. And he sees himself, and he sees his child, and all of a sudden recognizes that God is not asking him to sacrifice his child. That's not what he's supposed to do. That the story of his continuity doesn't go through the sacrifice of a fellow human being, and of course not his child. And so he finally hears God's voice, breaks with all patterns, and he changes at least his story, and of course the story of the entire world. There is one more thing in this context, and it's that after the Akedah, the Torah once again uses the name Abraham. Now, some rabbinical commentators say, well, he's addressed as Abraham because he cannot be addressed anymore as Isaac's father. He lost that privilege. And for years I read it that way. But I want to offer a different perspective on that today. And it's that he's addressed as Abraham because he came back to himself. He all of a sudden was able, and not all of a sudden, with very hard work, was able to return to himself, to become himself, by stepping back and being able to observe his own behavior, his own patterns, and once again, challenge them and change them. Now, I want to think for a moment about our dancing floor, about our dynamics, our social interactions, the rhythm of our dance, and to invite us to consider the possibility of stepping back, of going into a balcony and observe ourselves and those surrounding us, and as opposed to try all the time to keep pushing, once in a while to step back and try to gain perspective, try to gain insight, wisdom, try to recognize how others are moving, what others are doing, and also how we are being perceived, what our role in that dance is. And maybe, when we come back into the dancing floor, and now coming back into the dancing floor is a must. You can go to the balcony only for a few minutes. But life happens in the dancing floor. It doesn't happen in the balcony. The balcony is only a tool in order to observe, to gain wisdom, to change direction, to rectify. But then we need to go back into the dancing floor and engage, participate. And maybe when we go back and we engage and participate, maybe we can change all patterns. Maybe we are able to change things that are not healthy for us and nor for those surrounding us. Maybe we gain new energies, and maybe we bring continuity to our story. Shabbat Shalom. We'll continue our service on page 586 with Aleinu Leshabeach. At the end of our service, we take a moment to acknowledge mourners among our community. We acknowledge those during the first 7 days of mourning Shiva. I saw that Barbara and Alicia are there. Remember husband and dad, Rabbi Art Levine. We acknowledge those during the cycle of the first 30 days of mourning, Shloshim. And so we acknowledge those during the cycle of the first year of mourning. We also invite those that have a yahrzeit this week, the anniversary of someone passing by this time of the year in years past, to share the names of those that you are remembering. And of course, we invite those connecting with us in YouTube and on Facebook to share the names of those that you are remembering. Now, while standing or sitting, we invite you to support our fellows while with your voices or with your hearts on page 598 for Kaddish Avelim, Mourners Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
Amen.
בעלמא דברך חירותי, וימליך מלכותי. בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל. בעגלה ובזמן קריב יאמרו.
Amen.
יהא שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעולמי. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא. ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה. תושבחתה ונחמתה, תאמירן בעלמה ואמרו,
Amen.
יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו,
Amen.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו, אמן.
May the memories of your dear ones be always a blessing. Yeah, Zichram Baruch. May be seated. Two things. Thank you. Two things that we would like to, three things that we would like to share. Number one, tomorrow we have lunch and learn. Once again, Julie Connor will be visiting us and sharing the story of her mother, who was an Holocaust survivor. We are very close to the Crystal Nacht, and the Crystal Nacht is going to be on November 8th. And it is our tradition in our community, as we get closer to the Crystal Nacht, to start studying and to keep the memory of the Shoah, of the Holocaust, in our hearts and also in our minds by engaging in active memory through study. Also, on Sunday, we will be, many of us will be participating in a mitzvah day. It's a great opportunity to engage, and if you haven't signed up for any activity yet,
Sign up for mine.
you can sign up for Gabriel's activity, and you also can reach out to Rachel or sign up through our website. It's a great opportunity. Wonderful things are happening. I can tell you that Johnny, for example, sent a huge box with things that she has been doing, I don't know, for 25 years. And she's still working. It's a 24/7. She's working on it. There's a huge box that came with things. So I think that thanks to her, some people, several people in the streets of Fullerton will have a warmer winter. So your actions and the things you do really make a difference. So we encourage you to keep doing, and for all of us to keep engaging in trying to make this place a better place. And on Monday, we will have a blood drive. We encourage you to join us on giving blood. If you haven't, you need to make an appointment. So you need to go into a website. It's very easy. It takes 2 minutes. So if you want to join us, it will be fantastic. There's a shortage of blood in the United States. So it's a great opportunity to participate in such a thing. We committed to 29 portions. We have, I think, by now we have about 25 commitments. So the 4 righteous that haven't signed up yet, this is your time. This is your time to do it. And last thing about the next Lunch and Learn, the Lunch and Learn of November 20th. I can confirm that we will have the privilege of hosting Father Dennis Chris from St. Philip Church here in Fullerton, and also Imam Kaisar Shavir from the Islamic Center here in Fullerton as well. And I'm looking forward to have a wonderful conversation with the two of them. We are good friends, the three of us, and we will be discussing different concepts, different values around our faith. One of them, in the context of Thanksgiving, is going to be gratitude, but not the only one. So we encourage you to sign up for that activity already. With all that said, I think we can do Kiddush. Kiddush is on page 120, so if you have a cup of wine nearby, please prepare your cup of wine, and otherwise I will hold the Kiddush cup in your behalf. בערב ויבוקר יום השישי ויחולו השמיים בארץ בכל צבאם, ויחל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה, וישפוט ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה. ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי ויקדש אותו כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. סברי חבריי וחברותיי, וכנסי לחיים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם בורא פרי הגפן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ברצה בנו בשבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנחילנו זיכרון למעשה בראשית כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת עם כל העמים בשבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. לחיים. We make sure that no one leaves this space without a blessing. As we conclude our service, as we conclude our tefillah shel Kabbalat Shabbat, we are reminded that God took a moment to acknowledge each one of its creations in Shabbos. And so we acknowledge our own creations. We acknowledge those creations in which we are involved, the creative work in which we participate. We acknowledge those that brought us to this moment with their love and their blessings. We acknowledge that blessings and love have the power to travel beyond time and beyond walls, and that the blessings of our parents and grandparents, whether they are alive or not, they are constant, they are given in this world, in our world, in our hearts. We tell to our children, Yasimchem Elohim, like Ephraim and Menashe, like Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. May God inspire you to be like the fathers and the mothers of Israel. Barchem Adonai, Beish Merechem, may God bless you and protect you. Yair Adonai, Panav Elechem, Bichunechem. May God's light shine upon you and may God be gracious to you. Isa Adonai, Panav Elechem, Be'asem Lachem Shalom. May you feel God's presence within you always. May you find balance, may you find center, may you find perspective, may you find the wholeness of the divine love, and may you find Shalom, peace. Adonai os le'amav iten, Adonai yevarech et amav b'shalom. Shabbat Shalom everyone.
Shalom Rahav, HaYisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rahav, HaYisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam.
טוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך.
Shalom Rahav,
ישראל עמך שים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך שים לעולם. כי אתה הוא מלך הדור לכל השלום. כי אתה הוא מלך הדור לכל השלום. שלום רב על ישראל עמך שים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך שים ברכה, על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. Shabbat Shalom everyone.